Stand by. 5, 4, 3.
Running from the past. Learn more right after this.
Looks like it's done.
Don't let salmonella get funky with your chicken. On average, 1 in 6 Americans will get a foodborne illness this year. You can't see these microbes, but they might be there. So learn the right temperature to cook each type of meat. Keep your family safe at foodsafety.gov.
Greg,
Doug,
how are you?
great. And you?
Good. So a literary show today.
One of your type of shows.
Now, see, I was going to say it was one of your type of
No.
shows. You are the book man.
I like to read books, but you actually are an author. You have written stuff, So so I mean, this is your kind of show because you really
Now, you
understand.
you weren't always a reader,
No, I wasn't.
but you've made up for it.
I do okay,
Yeah.
but still the mechanics involved and all of that stuff. I mean, that's definitely you.
You know, we actually talk about books we're reading periodically,
We do.
and that has been something that's developed and changed over the years that we've known each other.
Yes, I can actually
That's
recommend books to you now.
That's right. Yeah. And I know that I need to read them because you're going to bother me until I do. So.
Right. I just think there's something about books that are, as one person told me, books or a person's life capsulized. And so it allows you to see things from a different perspective that you don't necessarily have to experience in person.
Well, our guest today is a writer, and I believe this is her second
book to my knowledge.
that we'll
yeah.
talk about. We had her on as a guest with the first book, so it's great to be able to follow her career.
Especially when she blew up like Zane.
I know. Yeah. We are going to take a quick break. We'll be back with Taisha Clinton right after this. So stay with us.
I'm transferring to the University of West Georgia.
Columbia University.
Kennesaw State,
UGA, Loyola University in Chicago,
Grambling State.
Shorter University. I'm going to Greensboro College, and we all got our start at Georgia Highlands.
No matter where your educational journey takes you, you can get your start at Georgia Highlands College. Georgia Highlands College. Enroll, engage, excel.
Welcome back to Community Watch. We're very happy to have with us today Taisha Clinton, author, book number 2. Welcome back to the show.
Thanks for having me.
So the new book is titled Running from the Past.
Yes, sir.
Now, I know the first book was Something in the Past.
Yes.
Now that's been, when was that? When did that come out? Has it been a year?
No, it's been a few years, actually. 2011, yeah.
So how was that experience for you, the experience of having your book in print?
It was wonderful. It was bittersweet, I call it, because my mom died a month after my first one was released. That's why it took me so long to start back writing.
But, I mean, to actually have
it was very
the
satisfactory.
book and hold it, and everything. So, I mean, I'm sure we asked you this then, and I don't remember, but how long did it take you to write that first book?
It took me probably about 2 years to write the first one.
Yeah. So you have to really stick with it.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, because it's been 3 years, so we can ask questions. We ask all the time. So, what led you? How did you become a writer? Because you're not aspiring to be. You're an author. What led you to writing?
Well, the automobile industry shut down in Dayton, Ohio, and I used to always tell everybody, I'm gonna write a book, I'm gonna write a book. And then when that happened, it just gave me the opportunity, you know, for us time-wise, to go ahead and write my book.
Okay, now, so I get what gave you the opportunity, but why?
The inspiration.
Yeah, because you have some pretty, I mean, it's not an easy book. It deals with some stuff. So what was that all about for you?
I guess growing up in those type of environments and seeing things and wanting to see a change, per se, you know. Just wanting to see a change, wanting to make a difference. At one point in my life, I felt I was the problem, and now I would like to become part of the solution.
Is writing something that you have always thought about doing? Is that, I mean...
I've always had a passion for books. I always loved reading.
Yeah, so it makes sense then that writing is the way you would decide to present what's on your mind.
Yes, it's very therapeutic.
As opposed to painting or you know, whatever.
I love books, but I can't paint. I'm not a writer. I'm not.
I'm sure you can. I think everybody have a book in them. It's just about getting it out.
Oh, you have several in you, man. Yeah. All right, so you went through that 2-year process of writing the first book, and you got that published. And what was the response to it?
It was pretty good, but like I said, when my mom died, I lost the motivation to even try to, you know, get it out there. With my first book, I self-published, so it was a little harder. But with this one, I was actually blessed with a 3-book deal through Ashanti Publishing. So.
Wow, that's a big deal. That's a big deal. All right, so what's the process been for the new book then? How long did that take you?
The new book, I started it, stopped it, started it, stopped it. You know, I just had to just pull it out of me. I just knew, okay, mommy will be really mad at me if I don't continue doing what she wanted me to do. And she was very proud. I was happy and blessed that she was actually able to see the first one. Yeah.
So now with a 3-book deal, so this is not a hobby. This is a career. This is who you're an author. You know?
Yeah, prayerfully.
So how? Because I'm curious. You get your first book. You know, it's published.
Right.
Was approaching a second book similar to approaching the first book, or was it a totally different experience?
It was totally different, in my opinion. Self-publishing and going through a publishing company, 2 totally different processes. Because, well, with my publishing company, they were very, very intimate with me. They called, checked on me. You know, they were very good. It was very different. With the first one, okay, you pay them and bam, they give you your book. They wanted extra money to edit it, you know, and all of that and help promote it. Whereas this time they edited it and they're helping me promote it in any way that they can.
But was the actual writing different? I mean, just so if you remove the business aspect of it,
okay,
just the writing, the story, was that different as well?
Not really, because I had the same goal to try to make a change in the communities that I came from. So, and I enjoy it.
Now, are they both novels?
Yeah, they're both novels. Running from the Past could be considered a prequel and a sequel because I wanted it to be able to stand on its own. I didn't want a person to have read something in the past in order to understand what Running from the Past was about. So I started from the beginning of Samantha's journey in life, but I also answered the last question that I left in Something in the Past. It is answered in Running from the Past, but like I said, I wanted it to be able to stand on its own.
So all right, so that our viewers have a understand. So kind of because we want them to go buy the book. But kind of tell us about Samantha. What is the book about at the core? What is the book?
Samantha has a mother who's addicted to drugs, and it's all the trials and tribulations that she faced going through that. You know, having a parent addicted to drugs can make your life very hard. And she joined a gang looking for love and support out in the streets where it should have been in the home. So she go through a lot. By being in the gang, she raised her children to be in the gang. And one of her children gets killed in a drive-by shooting, you know, at a annual gang picnic. And that's something that I seen when I was in the gang. I was younger, so I didn't have any children then, but I seen a lot of parents raise their children in gangs, and you'll see a lot of children at events that they probably shouldn't be at, but they'll be like, okay, they could be outside until the sun goes down. And I just really wanted to focus on the lives that are lost and the innocent children. You know what I'm saying? Like adults, they make choices, but a lot of innocent victims get caught in the crossfire, and I really want to put the spotlight on that.
You know, it's interesting that as you talk about gangs, because I know you have some people in Rome that are not as readily to admit that we have a gang problem. Some people say the gangs are no longer here, but gangs still exist in Rome. And I think one of the things the community have really struggled with is how to have discussion with children participating in gang activities, because I don't think that's something that's been germane to Rome. It's not like something everybody's aware of in Rome. And so how do you have those kind of conversations, and not only conversations, what does that mean in a gang? You know, because we have the TV version of gangs, but what does it really mean? So a book like yours really is at a very appropriate time, that it's something that people could actually read to get a better understanding of some of that, what you have seen yourself in actual gangs.
Right. I think it's all about being real and honest. It's like if the gang is approaching your child, they are already gonna be subjected to topics that you probably would not want to discuss with them, but it's better you talk to them than let the gang leaders talk to them.
Well, I'm curious about the subject matter as well as your process. The main character's name is
Samantha.
So in the first book, how old is she in that book?
In the first book, she's 15. She's Jackie's niece. Jackie was the main character in my first book.
All right, so she becomes the major character in the
right
second
in
book.
the second book.
All right. And are both of these books set in the same general location?
Yeah, the setting is in Chicago, Illinois, and Dayton, Ohio.
I'm wondering, because that premise, to me at least, is a fairly new concept. I mean, I've read both fiction and nonfiction about gang activity, but bringing in the level of family participation is something I hadn't considered before. So that seems new to me.
Congratulations! Because oh wow! I mean, because Doc, Doc is like the author. I can ask Doc about a book, and he's like, yeah.
Very versatile.
Yeah, comparing who was it, 50 Cent and some scholar in 1600s. I mean, so I'm very impressed.
Thank you.
So I mean, that's very interesting to me.
And see, that's what it is when you're raising your child in a gang. It's like a culture to them. You know what I'm saying? So whereas opposed to you guys, you probably trying to prevent your children from being in the gang. What if the parents were raising them to be in the gang, you know?
So it's not always this, so really...
It's not always the big bad wolf
coming to recruit your kids.
A lot of time it's in the family. I mean, I've seen parents find it funny when they kids like on the stove, on the balls, you know what I'm saying? Basically gang banging, and that's how Samantha is. She thinks it's all fun and games until she loses one of her children due to her gang activity.
That is a different concept that that you really never think about. Is that it's always you see children being recruited from
Right.
external forces,
Right.
and you never. Well, I never really hear people talking about you've been born.
Right.
Kind of-
Think about like Al Capone, you know what I'm saying? Like Chicago, it's organized crime. So everything is basically organized.
We got to take a break.
Okay.
We'll be back, though. Stay with us. We'll be right back after this.
Hi, may I please have an application? Thank you.
Skip the drama. Get your diploma.
Okay.
Take that first step towards a better future. Find free adult education classes at finishyourdiploma.org.
Welcome back to Community Watch. We're talking with author Taisha Clinton, who has just had her second book published. The first, Something in the Past, the new one, Running from the Past. Is it out now? Is the book out now?
Yes, Running from the Past is out now, and I'm working on Living in the Past. So.
Well, you got this 3-book deal. But before we took a break. We was talking about this whole just becoming part of a gang, because so much of what I've seen is this whole gang initiation. Jumped into a gang, kids been recruited. These are all the reasons why your kids are in the gang, because they lack ABCD. They're looking for all this in the street, which is true.
Yeah.
Part of it. But you're saying, yeah, that's true, but there's another part
Side of it, right.
of gangs. And when you actually, right before we took a break, you said something, Al Capone. When you look at one of the, I guess, a classic among a lot of men, the Godfather saga, they're born into it.
Right.
There is part of that. When we think of organized crime, it is family. That is, and so now that when I think about gangs today, I never think about family. It's always some kid that was recruited because where he lived.
Right.
Yep.
And since you brought up The Godfather, it made me, when you were talking about the way the second book is a sequel of
prequel and a sequel. Okay.
Just like Godfather 2, which goes from the past to
the
the
present.
future.
Right.
So when I write my scholarly article about your work, I'm going to make that comparison.
Thank you.
But really, that is there may be works out there that deal with similar situations. I just don't know them. But that's a really interesting approach to the subject matter.
Well, it changes the whole dynamics. I mean, because when you're talking about combating gang activity, how do you combat what my mom have been teaching me all my life? That's one thing if you say, remove them, but if my mother,
if it's in the home, right?
How do you combat that as a community? So for that purpose alone, I think the book will force us to change dialogue. That we have to look at it not just from a perspective of external forces, but internal forces.
Right, internal as well.
I don't know how far down the road you have figured out where you're going, but will your what is essentially becoming kind of a series, I guess, are you going to continue with the same family? Or?
Yes, the right family. Because what I find, I know when I used to read, I like to, when you get to know a character, you want to see them again. You know what I'm saying? And that's what I wanted to do. And I also wanted it to be, my urban book to be a little different. Like the average urban books, it's like they glamorize things. I wanted to tell the ugly part, when the mother is fiending for drugs and what she's willing to do in order to obtain those drugs. I wanted to tell, the dark and ugly side that people want to, hide from. That's like with my first book, people were so offended because I had the picture of the dead child on it, but like a few months after that, a 6-month-old baby had got shot, and that's just ridiculous to me. You're offended by fiction, but you could deal with reality.
Yeah, that's
strange, isn't it?
It's got a deep right there because you're right. The cover of your first book is kind of like
right. People like
you look
on the news and that's okay though.
Well, I was just going to say, I know a lot of people who would say, I read to escape.
Mm-hmm.
But clearly your purpose is to not allow people to escape.
Right. I want to make a change, and you can't make a change living in a fantasy world. You got to bring reality and say, look, this is what's going on. Now, what are we going to do about it?
Now, I have to say now, Monster, by Monster Cody, I can't think of his name, but Cody, whatever. I love that book because growing up in the South, what I consider in retrospect a very safe environment growing up here, he was able to depict gang life in a way that really gave me a different perspective of the gang life, because I have no clue of what gang life is like. And his book was, I think, one of the first books that I read dealing with gangs that gave you a different perspective. And just really the mental damage, you could say, is done to people that live in that kind of environment, that hostile environment.
Yeah.
So while your book may be fiction, I can see the importance of painting, a real picture of gang life, because in all honesty, our culture as a whole, my personal critique, is that even though we say it's wrong, we still tend to glamorize it in videos and certain industries. You have a short lifespan. Yes, you can go to prison, but in between that time, you can make money. You can have all these women. You can have these cars, and we really don't talk about that. We say prison, but we don't talk about that day-to-day dirty aspect of it that people have to deal with, like the drug aspect. Yeah, people use drugs, but what are happening in the households?
That child? Yeah. What about that child whose mother sold all the food stamps in order to get the drugs, and they had to come home to no food,
But of course, with your premise, you're dealing with children who really don't have that choice even,
right?
Because it's just the universe that they're introduced to.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to agree but disagree as well, because at the end of the day, we all have choices. I've seen up close and personal what some children out of that type of household grew up to be amazing. RNs and doctors.
But it must make
it's harder.
Yeah, and you wonder, or at least I would wonder. At what point does the child begin to recognize that there are other options? That must be
hard.
Yeah.
At what point and when are you able to say, this is not the life I want?
Right. It's programs like the program that you have, the 100 Men Club. You know what I'm saying? It's programs like that, I believe, that helps them, give them a temporary escape every day.
Thinking about the book and the whole subject matter, which is fascinating. But I want to, if you don't mind, I want to kind of go back to the writing aspect of it, because so I don't know that writing within the African American community is something that we preach and practice, in the sense that, it's very rare to see, I think, Black authors. Now you can go in the bookstore, you see a bunch of what I call just trashy books to me, but but we really, being a young female African American author, I think is very awesome, and that it becomes a reality, because I believe in what they see is what they'll be, the 100 motto. So do you, now that you are an author and you want to make a change, do you see yourself in that regard for as being a role model for young African American females?
I would love to. I would love to have speaking engagements, tell my story, tell how I wrote my book. I can't say what's the right way, what's the best path, but I would love to help in any way I can. Any way I can.
And do you find people that well, I don't get a lot of time, but I'm interested. So as you tell your story, what about the people that know some of the situations that you're writing about? Has that been any problem with that?
Nah.
If it hurt anybody's feelings or anything?
Nah, you know, I'm like 1,000 miles away from
Okay.
everybody.
But people,
so.
it's on Amazon, it's on Barnes and Noble.
Hey, it is what it is. I'm telling my story. You know what I saw, my perspective. You know, I don't mean to offend anyone. You know, hey, write a book about me. You know, it is what it is.
So when you go home, people are like, "Oh, we're so happy," but why did you put that part in there?
I haven't gotten that yet.
Well, good.
And if I do get it, it'll be like, hey, you think it's about you? I'm not writing about you. 'Cause my book
So
is a work
dog
of
will
fiction.
holler.
Right.
So you've been in this part of the country for several years now?
Mm-hmm. I've been here for 6 years now. And before living here, I lived in Dayton, Ohio for 10. So I've been out of Chicago for about 16, 17 years.
Yeah. And at least to this point, your books are both set in those areas.
The settings are in those areas. I'm going to throw some Rome in there with my next one, though.
Well, I was just wondering if it benefited you somehow to have a little distance from it to be able to write about it.
Yes, definitely, because when you're on the outside looking in, it's easier to see, the picture is clearer. But when you're on the inside, in the chaos or whatever the case may be, you focused on, you know, living day to day.
So how long was it after you left that you were able, I mean, how much time had to pass before you were able to kind of sit back and say, now I can really
Probably
look at
about
it and say,
13 years.
Really?
Yeah, it took a while.
Yeah.
And it's like I had to reprogram my mind. I used to call myself a black soul, but my soul isn't black, you know. So.
Well, I don't know. I'm looking forward to the new book tremendously.
you.
And I want you to promise to come on the show with every new book now,
I will. Thank you for having me.
so we can kind of trace the.
Well, I think even with this 3-book deal, so we know we're gonna have to sit for 3 more books.
I mean, I don't know. We haven't brought up movies yet, but it just seems inevitable.
Oh,
to me.
prayerfully, I
I'm just-
pray for me.
But I just, as part of Writers Academy, program that we did where we was trying to help kids learn to write, I think this is, part of it. We have to give kids options. And if we start young, I mean, then, I just think it can grow into one day, you have more young people writing their own story. Because at the end of the day, a lot of times we are trying to tell their story for them. And writing allows you to tell your own story.
If you guys have any programs that you would like for me to speak to, I would love to tell my story to help prevent anything from messing up little old Rome.
Well, we won't forget. You're gonna be busy. We got to take another break here. When we come back, we'll give you some information about where you can get the copy of the new book. So stay with us.
The average text takes your eyes off the road for nearly 5 seconds.
Welcome back to Community Watch. We've been talking with author Tyesha Clinton about her new book, Running from the Past, which you can get for your own reading pleasure from Amazon.com or BarnesandNoble.com. Online bookstores all have it. So look for that, Running from the Past, Tyesha Clinton. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you guys for having me.
And thank you for watching the show. We'll see you next time on Community Watch.